I'm Katelyn Mattson, and this is the Green Room. Opera Kansas is bringing opera back to Riverfest. Once upon a time, there was always an opera being performed in Mary Jane Teal during River Festival. And a few years have gone by, and their new director, Matt Schloneger, is bringing back the opera with a really fun piece by Gilbert and Sullivan called H.M.S. Pinafore. I am joined by not only Matt in the green room, but also the stage director, John Stevens, who is a professor of voice and music at the University of Kansas, joining us here in Wichita for the week. Hello, John. Hello, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
Great to be with you.
Well, I'm happy to have both of you here. It's fun to be able to talk with both the producer and executive director of the company, but also guest artist and stage director John Stevens. Let's start with the undertaking of having three performances in two different venues, all within the same weekend. You
Well, actually,
actually open at McPherson Opera House.
yes, it's just two performances, not three. So we will be doing one performance Friday night at the McPherson Opera House, which is just, a beautiful old venue. And in fact, we understand that one of the very first performances ever done at the McPherson Opera House was H.M.S. Pinafore back in 1889. So it's fun to be bringing it back. And then as
11 years after it was premiered in London, it,
Really?
it hit McPherson. Yep.
Yep, it's in
That-
McPherson.
That's
So
that's incredible to me.
It
yeah.
really is. Why does that? It just doesn't seem like that short of a time, especially giving the time period we're talking about. Like, well, let's
Right.
give people an idea of around what year would this have been?
Uh,
1889.
yeah. And it was and premiered and Pinafore premiered in 1878. So is that where's is my math on? Anyway,
That sounds
1878.
that sounds like
Yeah.
correct math. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so 11 years.
Oh, that's so
Um,
interesting.
Gilbert and Sullivan were so popular that pirated versions of their operas appeared in London like the day or in New York like the day after they were premiered in London. It was just nuts. So
So
yes.
you could say, I mean, they were like the pop stars of the day. People went
pretty much,
crazy for their operettas.
pretty much. Yep.
So
Yeah.
HMS Pinafore is Friday night at McPherson Opera House, and then
Uh,
you
Then we'll be
move
at
over to Wichita.
Riverfest. Yeah, it's a Riverfest in the Mary Jane Teal Theater at Century 2 on Sunday afternoon at 2:30 for one performance in Wichita. And we're really excited to be there. And we're kind of borrowing the idea of the wind wagon at the Wichita Riverfest and setting HMS Pinafore, which normally we sail the ocean blue in a British Navy ship, but now we'll be sailing the waving wheat on the prairie seas of Kansas, in keeping with the Riverfest's wind wagon theme.
So are you updating? Is the staging updated, John, or is it set in the original time period?
No, it's set in the original time period, more or less. I mean, it's back and all. So no, we are not updating per se. We are just relocating.
Yeah.
The premise is that the captain and the crew and the captain's daughter, all of HMS Pinafore, who are normally docked off the coast of England, have come to the United States, built a wind wagon, and immigrated to the wheat fields of Kansas, where all of the action, but all the it's all about social class prejudice. That's kind of the humor. Gilbert and Sullivan always had some social issue that they parodied. And so those values, even though they left England, those values are still on board on the wind wagon. So basically we just do the show in Kansas.
That's so great. And to get tickets for the Friday night performance in McPherson, do they go to the Opera House website or the opera
Well,
website?
for both performances, you can either go to operakansas.org to our website, and there are ticket links there, or you can go to the venue website. So you can go to the McPherson Opera House website for Friday night tickets, or to select a seat at Century 2 or to the Riverfest website for Sunday tickets.
Uh, John, when you come in as a guest director, you meeting a cast for the first time, and it's this way throughout every professional company. Can you talk a bit about when you arrive? Do you already have things set in stone, or do you wait to get to know your people a bit? The individual performers themselves.
Well, it's a little bit of both. I've directed Pinafore numerous times. In fact, I directed it for Wichita Grand, maybe I'll say 15 years ago. I don't know. I worked a lot for that company, but I've directed it all over the place. I've sung in it all over the place. So I have a production, particularly the chorus movements and dances, such as they are, and that kind of stuff. That's pretty much planned. In fact, it is planned. And so anytime I go to a new venue to restage a show, I've got it pretty much set in stone, but that stone becomes malleable, So
Yeah.
there's that aspect. First of all, you have to refit. In fact, that's what we're going to do this afternoon, refit the production that I've done in different places to this new, really neat stage setting that we have, and the environs of that theater. But the other part is that particularly in terms of the principles. So on the one hand, you've got the chorus work and just the logistics. That has to be organized. But for the principles, I know generally what I want them to do, but certainly I've learned to stand back, and let their individual talents manifest themselves. So it's a little bit of both.
We're going to hear a bit from H.M.S. Pinafore. We're going to hear one of their choruses just really quickly, and then come back and talk more about H.M.S. Pinafore, which Opera Kansas is producing, and it opens Friday night in McPherson. And then you can also hear it at Riverfest on Sunday afternoon. We'll be right back. H.M.S. Pinafore by Gilbert and Sullivan, who were rock stars in their day. People adored their operettas. They couldn't get enough of them. One of the reasons why is because they are just hilarious. I have Matt Schloneger and John Stevens. Matt is the executive director and producer of Opera Kansas. John Stevens, guest director. He comes from Lawrence. He is a professor of voice and opera at KU. Now, this opens at the McPherson Opera House for one performance Friday night, and then you can hear it and see it at the Mary Jane Teal Theater on Sunday afternoon. John, can you talk a bit about the principal vocalist? Who's playing who? Who do we get to hear?
Well, I would say first, Tim Bostwick is Sir Joseph Porter, and he that character is, like, I call him, like the epitome of unmerited status. He has no business being the admiral, and it's based on a historical character in London who was promoted to the admiralty because of who he knew and where he'd been and stuff. And so this character comes on stage and relates the unlikely sequence of events that got him to running the admiralty. And Tim, it just has this deadpan but full of life face, and that just makes it perfect. The tenor, Rafe Rackstraw, Ethan Manlove is his name, is perfect in this part. His beautiful tenor voice, but this character has some of the most complex, absurd speeches I think ever written, for certainly an operetta. And you have to have a brain that can hang on to this stuff. And Ethan's perfect for it. Likewise, our Josephine, Danielle Harrington, who's from Oklahoma City, first rate, and she has a great deal of witty dialogue also, but then has really difficult arias to sing. This is relatively speaking, this is early Gilbert and Sullivan. It was their first major hit, and you can see that the demands that are put on, particularly the soprano, in these early operas like Pinafore. Her second aria, A Simple Sailor, it's called. It's like a Bellini, or it's like it's parodying opera. That was they parodied everything, but at the same time, Sullivan wrote gorgeous and difficult arias, and so she sings it so beautifully. We have a terrific captain, Patrick Cowley, who's this neurotic, always looking over his shoulder to see if somebody's going to try to take his job, and Dick Deadeye, this wonderful Spencer, what's his last name? McIntyre. I just met these, I'll say kids. To me, everybody's a kid. I used to come into a show and be twice as old as everybody. Now I'm 3 times as old as everyone. So everybody's a kid. Brings this gruff, it's a great sort of gruff thing to it. So it's a first-rate cast. And I'm so proud and happy with the people that Matt assembled.
And talk about the rehearsal process. When it comes to a professional production, it's not a long, drawn out process. I mean, everybody's given their roles, or given their part. They are set, there's the assumption they'll work on them privately, and then everybody comes together, and it's almost like Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, let's put on a show where
Well,
you have like 4 rehearsals and suddenly you're in a production.
yeah, well, we've had, I've worked in places where, but both primarily actually as a singer, where there could be 5 weeks of rehearsal. I've sung a lot with Santa Fe Opera, and they rehearsed forever. It's wonderful, and there's more exploration and stuff. Here we had about a week and a half, which is, with that in mind, I had to show up ready, and the cast and the chorus particularly were almost, they're required to be essentially off book, essentially memorized. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. So, yeah. So the understanding is that professionals show up memorized and ready to go. I've worked with wonderful Broadway performers who aren't used to that, and so they show up and they want to start exploring, and we're like, sorry, pal, in this one we don't have time. So not that we don't explore, but it's kind of a different different discipline, I guess.
Yeah.
Matt, can you give us all the details one more time about when the productions are, how to get tickets?
Yeah, sure. So Friday night at the McPherson Opera House at 7:30, and you can get tickets for that either at operakansas.org or at the McPherson Opera House website. And then we will be as part of Riverfest on Sunday afternoon at Century 2's Mary Jane Teal Theater at 2:30 p.m. And once again, you can get tickets on our operakansas.org website, or through Select a Seat with Century 2, or through Wichita Riverfest. And I will mention that to get into our performance, you do need to have a Riverfest button, but you can buy that Riverfest button with your ticket to our Sunday performance, with or without. And it's really about the same price overall as our performance in McPherson. But then at Riverfest, you also get a button that you can use for the rest of the Riverfest events, for the whole Riverfest week, or however long it is.
Yeah. All right. And finally, John, yes.
Yeah, I just say I neglected to mention Heather Redondo, who's playing our little Buttercup, who is just
Oh, I know Heather.
Oh, she's so good. She sings beautifully and then can just turn on a dime as an actress.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah.
Would you say that this is the perfect opportunity for a family to introduce their children to classical music and opera?
Maybe not squirming babies, but our kids, my wife and I have 2 kids, and they grew up tracking around the country when I was a singer. And then, by the time a kid is 7 or 8, 10, depending on who they are. Yeah, absolutely. The show runs, it's just about an hour and a half with intermission. It's not a long show.
And
H.M.S.
it's just so fun and entertaining.
It really is. They're hilarious. These Gilbert and Sullivan pieces. They're just, I don't know if I know that both of you have seen it, but if anybody listening, and if they listen with any regularity, they know that, Katelyn talks a lot about how obsessed I was with Pirates of Penzance and that Kevin Kline and Linda Ronstadt movie. Oh my goodness. I can't. It's so hilarious. Yeah. It's just pure
as
entertainment.
is this show. This was one of their biggest hits, and so much fun. And our cast and with the direction of John are just doing a fantastic job. I'm just thrilled with the product.
Well, wonderful. Have a great run of the show. Happy opening on Friday night in McPherson, and then a quick turnaround, and they are performing at Wichita Riverfest, Mary Jane Teal Theater on Sunday afternoon. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.